Welcome back to Society Case Files. My name is Robert, and today I'm going to talk about Borderlands 4 again. If you like this kind of content and you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Otherwise, I'm going to dive right in. The reason I'm revisiting this so soon after my little first impressions is that I have played quite a bit more of it, and I have a lot more time into it to talk a little bit more about the systems and how it feels, and also sort of what's been talked about outside of the game. So Randy Pitchford, the guy who runs this Gearbox. So as far as the game is concerned, I have to admit that my initial impressions were fairly negative. I just wasn't really into it as much as I had hoped, but I gave it some time. I went back to it, and then I ended up really having a lot of fun. But that was mostly through the early levels, like levels 1 through, say, 11. I found it to be pretty compelling and exciting and a lot of fun. However, once I got past level 10 for real, the game became a lot more grindy, and the battles in it were just becoming more and more, for lack of a better term, more of the same. And on top of that, they're just freaking endless. They get tiring. Like, for example, I made a run from 10 to 15. That was no big deal. That only took a couple of hours, and it was a lot of fun. Then I thought, all right, now that I'm back, I'm going to play levels 15 to 20, and there was no way. I could get through maybe 2 or 3 battles before I was just fatigued from the just constant barrage of it. And it doesn't balance that kind of chaos as well as, say, the Doom games do, the modern Doom games where you've just basically got to sprint forward and trash everybody in your path. This game just sort of has them spawn, and you're kind of in the same small arena running around. Now, you could try and charge through them, but frankly, at least Vex is a little bit too squishy for that, so you've got to take some caution. You know, use some cover, use all of your abilities. Now, I admit that part of this is the fact that I am probably using, at least in my opinion, one of the worst builds for this character, because my skills feel pretty pointless, and her ultimate doesn't really help all that much either for me. And I also get very annoyed with the reload animations. Now, granted, they're a lot better with some of the guns I have now than they used to be, but my goodness, some of them are very frustrating because, you know, oftentimes deaths come during reloads, obviously. For me, I should say. I shouldn't say obviously. But I guess that's kind of the big trick. I mean, I enjoy the random stuff that happens in the world, and the open world aspect is pretty cool. But then there's things like going and doing the propaganda towers where you have to hack them and basically shut them off, and it's just tedious. It's weird waves, and sometimes the mobs are outside of the range and you start losing progress, and it's just, those are annoying. Some of the others are pretty fun. I am honestly tired of travel in the game because it will allow you to go places that you're pretty much stuck, and you could be down there. It doesn't even like do the turn back. However, it will do turn back in places that look like you should have no trouble traveling around in. So there is that. And now I know I'm nitpicking pretty hard because all around I think the game's pretty good, but it is not a game that I can play for a super long time. I did an hour of play just to get this footage, and the reason it was an hour is because that's how long the freaking mission took. For me, I like missions to be broken up a lot more into smaller bite-sized pieces. That's just part of my modern version of ADD. I didn't have it before. But with games, I don't like things to take more than a half an hour to get some progress and be able to move on to the next thing. It's not that I'm going to stop in half an hour. It's just that I want that progression to be a little bit more granular. And in Borderlands, some of the missions will take a very long time. Now, some of the reason that this one took so long is because there's just so many combats to get through, and fighting these guys takes forever. Even with decent guns and being able to one-shot them with the sniper rifle, it still took, like I said, about an hour, and that's just too much for me. It basically means that I finish a level or a mission, and I'm like, okay, I need a break. And so yeah, that's sort of where I'm at with Borderlands 4. I'm enjoying it. I think it's going to take me a long time to finish just because I need frequent and long breaks, you know, at least sometimes by a whole day. And I do not have that sensation of wanting to come back. and try again as quickly as I did before. In fact, this morning I was kind of interested, but I felt a way to, but if I log in, I'm going to have to find a place to go, and then I'm going to get in all these big fights, and it's just going to be, playing the game itself felt more like a chore than a joy. And I think that's really where Borderlands 4 is for me, is that some of it feels like a chore. And unfortunately, some of that is the core gameplay of the battles. Some of these monsters are just frustratingly annoying. It's not that they're like hard. It's that they are just designed to be slightly aggravating, whether they've got a whole bunch of shields and then they teleport around while you're trying to shoot them, or they just throw miracle grenades that are hyper accurate to flush you out all the time. I don't know. I know it sounds like I'm complaining a whole lot, and I am, but I also have to say that despite all that, I think it's a pretty good game. So with the amount of time I've got into it now, which is well over 10 hours, let's take a look. I'm at 16 hours. And I mean, that's not long for a Borderlands game, certainly not long for a open world game. I'm not even really through the opening segment. There are 4 of them, and I have put 16 hours just into the first one. Now, also, that's very intriguing because 16 hours is a long time for other games. I mean, that's a whole game in some places. So I think there's plenty of content here. And if you have the means of playing it well, as in it's going to run well for you, then I would recommend it if you like this kind of game. If the things that annoyed me bother you in games, if like you want to be able to hop in and only play for 20-30 minutes and get some progress in, this might not be for you. It's hard to get progress in a short period of time. It is a time commitment. If the kind of combat that you're watching on the screen right now looks a little bit tedious, then you might not be in. If it's the kind of thing you like, if you like this sort of pitched battle where there's just lots of action and it does take a few minutes to get through the enemies, it's not quite as like you being a superhero per se, then I think you could enjoy this too. But then we come back to that caveat that I said about whether or not you can run it. Now, I know that consoles shouldn't have a problem. I haven't heard any issues with those, but the PC has just been getting hammered over it. In fact, I think that's why the reviews are sitting at mixed for the most part. A lot of people complaining about how well it runs. I'm going to say this. On the computer that I took this footage on, this computer is absurd. It's the best I could get mid last year in pretty much every part. It would have had 128 gigs of RAM, but even my super expensive motherboard couldn't handle that. So I'm only at 64. It's got an i9 13900. It's got a 4090. It's great, and it really does push this game pretty well. I tried it on my gaming laptop. I've got a Asus gaming laptop. It's an 18-inch screen. It has a 4080 card in it, and I upgraded it. It's got 64 gigs of RAM. Both computers have solid-state hard drives, so I tried it on there. And an interesting fact. So in this version on my big computer, I'm getting 60 frames very consistently. If I go out in the middle of the open world and just start spinning around like a maniac, I can drop that down into the 40s. On the laptop, I was getting fairly consistent 50 frames, and it could drop down into the 30s if I was spinning around. So I did some of the tweaking they talk about, turning on DLSS and frame generation. And on the computer here, you can see my frames are in this battle over 90, often into the 100 frames. And on the laptop, I was getting between 80 and 90, dropping down to 70 at the most crazy stuff that would happen. So if you have the hardware for it, you can get some pretty darn good frames. And I'm at some of the best graphics too. Not that I necessarily think they're entirely necessary given what Borderlands looks like. The cell shade animation does trim away some of the need for it to be, I don't know, as high a resolution as it can possibly get. But with those two devices, trying them both, I can say that it was a pretty reasonable frame rate. Now, I also tried the game on GeForce Now. I bought a day pass to try it with some VR goggles and see what it was like. First off, that was nauseating. Second, playing it in a browser has a lot of lag. And finally, the frames on that were abysmal. Even though the machine you're playing with is really high, it didn't really matter because there was so much input lag that I guess the frames were probably fine, but the input lag is what got me. It was bad enough to where I couldn't really do a whole lot with that. So those were my multiple attempts to play the game on different setups. And I can say that, yeah, I see a pretty significant difference. My friend has a 3080, might have a 3090, I can't remember. But he gets stuttering when he's driving the not Sparrow around. Like that driving is very stuttery for him, but the regular game plays okay. I noticed that the vehicle on the laptop started a little stuttery, but then it smooths out pretty well after about 2 seconds. And I never get any stuttering on the super high-end machine. Now that leads me to what Mr. Pitchford was saying, and his frustration with people complaining about the performance, where he was like, just get a refund, or, you know, don't play the game now, wait for it to go on sale, play it when you have a better computer, all this kind of stuff. And I don't know if it's just that people were like afraid of using DLSS or whatever, because that's what he implied, or what was going on there. But he was pretty passionate about it and not winning any friends. But then again, I seem to remember that he's kind of a defensive guy when it comes to the Borderlands games. I kind of remember Borderlands 3 getting some defensive nonsense as well. And I don't know, he's obviously wants to be outspoken and talk to people about stuff. But it just seems weird that he would be quite so harsh and tell people to just basically take their ball and go home. So I'm not sure what to think about that. I mean, on one hand, I get it. He's frustrated because they put a lot of time into this, supposedly. And, you know, it's harsh to watch people just constantly complaining about a specific aspect of this product. But then on the other hand, throwing out things like this is a premium game for premium equipment is also just not the way. So I don't know. I'd be curious. What do you guys think about Randy's approach to PR? I would say that it lacks some cushioning, and it probably isn't really making too many friends. But does he care? I mean, I think they sold plenty of copies for him to not really worry about it. I also think it's interesting that he says just use the Steam refund system. I mean, that would be after 2 hours, unless he's going to let them know, yeah, go ahead and make an exception and refund anybody at any time. You know, that would be something else to talk about. But I don't know. I certainly don't think that Steam is going to just generously throw out refunds regardless of how long you've played because Randy said so. Unless, again, they've got some kind of agreement. But anyway, I'm curious. What do you guys think? Do you love Borderlands 4? Have you had fun? Have you been able to play it? What do you think about Randy's tirades and commentary? Let me know in the comments, and I will talk to you next time. This is Robert with Society Case Files, signing off.